of the To Be Redefined podcast. My name is Jenna. I'm here with my co-host and beautiful friend, Cambry, and we are super excited to have you all. For this first podcast episode, I think we're just planning to do a little bit of an introduction, just kind of talk about the goals for the podcast and the vision we have and where we're planning to go with it. And then also just kind of talk a little bit about ourselves, our life stories, and how we met, and just kind of our passion for the podcast and where that came from. So, Cambry, I'm very happy to have you here today.
Thank you very much.
And do you want to kind of talk a little bit about how we met?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, so my brother knew her husband, and they were pretty good friends. They still are pretty good friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember what we were doing that night, but I was with my brother, and he was hanging out with Jimmy and Jenna. And I don't know, we just like got cute over, and that was like the first time we met. And then we got each other's Snapchats, and then I remember the first time we actually got together, like us one-on-one, we just kept on doing things because we didn't want to say goodbye. Because we connected so well. So I was just like, hey, do you want to like go to the bank with me? Stuff like that. And it just, we just hit it off, and
the rest is history.
Yeah, how long ago was that? Like,
that was in the spring of like 2021, I think. So we're going on about three and a half years of friendship.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, it's so fun. It was. I think we were like, your brother was picking somebody up from like a sports practice or something.
A soccer game or something like that, and Qdoba, we were all like starving.
Yes.
And so,
yes, and I also like knew of you from a mutual friend that we had. Yeah. So Shay, if you're watching, hi.
And we had a couple mutual friends because they. I mean, I don't remember, like, I had gone to their church like a couple times, and then you guys had been going to that church for a little while.
True. Yes.
And
we have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't meet sooner.
Honestly, yes. Yeah, that's what happens when you grow up in Colorado. And I don't know, I feel like in this state, like a lot of people know each other or have mutual connections. So, but I would say it was meant to be. So, but yeah, it's this is our very first podcast for both of us. So it's a new adventure and might have some funny moments, some awkward moments. But yeah, yes. But overall, we are just super excited. So, and we're, both getting out of our comfort zone a little bit, and we're doing it together. So that makes it even better.
Yes. And easier.
Yes, for sure. Yes. But yeah, so I guess the vision for this podcast, actually, I want to share that first before we get into our individual stories, because I think it'll make a little bit more sense as to why we're sharing certain parts of our stories, and kind of what the point of all of that is. So the vision for this podcast is we became friends. We discovered we have some pretty similar childhoods and pasts, and just kind of similar family situations and things like that, and a lot of things that we've had to grow from and heal from, and we both have really kind of just come together, and our relationship and friendship has grown, and we've both grown individually as people through that time as well, and so we just kind of want to share some of the things that we've learned with you guys, and just the peace and joy that we have now, and also, the realness of life, that not everything is perfect, and just because you improve or you work on yourself doesn't mean that, life is all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah,
so,
and also, just because we have grown doesn't mean that there's not more growth to do. So
absolutely.
That's the beautiful part, is that we get to look back and see where we've come from. Also, we get to look forward and see where we want to go. And that's definitely a big part of it too.
Yes, 100%. And so this is kind of going to be geared towards women specifically, but obviously if any guys are out there listening, you can still listen, and maybe you'll learn something about, you know, how women think, and some things that might be applicable to yourself, because some things are just universal principles no matter who you are, and just some things you might be able to connect with some women in your life about. So so that's kind of who it's geared towards, and we also just kind of want to talk a little bit about societal issues around womanhood and just in general. You know, there's so many different things and voices telling women who they're supposed to be and where their value comes from, and that's something that we both are very passionate about and feel strongly about, and have grown a lot and experienced a lot of like heartache around. So we just want to share what we've learned and kind of unpack some of those issues with everybody. So without further ado, Camry, would you like to start us off just kind of talking a little bit about yourself and who you are and just the Cliff Notes version of your life?
Yes. Yeah, so I mean, I've lived in Colorado my entire life, and I come from a very big family. I have 8 siblings, and a big part of that is that, so I grew up in church, but that wasn't always, you know, a good thing, and it had been something that turned me away from faith for a little while because my mother, she struggles a lot with mental illness, and so she often would use the Bible and use like Jesus to treat people badly, and specifically her husband and her children. And so I was just like, you know, cool, Mom.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so yeah, that was a big part of my childhood. Was my parents did not get along. They had a very toxic marriage, and I know everyone likes to use that word, but in this case it was actually true. And so it started off with, that was just the way that she treated her husband, but then that led into being how she treated her children as well. And so that was a very big part of like adolescence, and then as I became a teenager, it only got worse. Because yeah, the older I got, the more my mom would want me to really understand what it meant to live with her husband. Basically, she wanted people to be on her side, is really what it was.
And kind of like parentified you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I kind of became her therapist in a sense,
That's healthy.
which yeah, I don't recommend people to do that to their 13-year-old, you know. But yeah, and so along with that, I would witness my parents' fights, but I also, obviously she was treating me very badly as well. And so, yeah, it wasn't an amazing childhood. There were definitely like some good parts of it, and I like to share those memories with my siblings and my dad, just to share the good parts of it. But there definitely is a lot that I had to heal from too. And I mean, when you're a kid, like you aren't thinking about the consequences of the future, and so you engage in a lot of very self-destructive behaviors because it's just what seems is right at the time. And so yeah, when I was around 13, I started to self-harm because of my mom's abuse and my parents' failing marriage, and that was the beginning of a lot of mental health issues for me. And I am, and again, talking about like growth, I've come a long way, and I had to work hard to get to the health that I experience today. But yeah, so that's a little bit, big family, difficult childhood,
Yes.
as you're familiar with.
Yes.
But yeah, then like once I turned 18, I moved out of my mom's house at that point, and then I started to actually make decisions for myself, which there's so much freedom in that.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that I made the right decisions all the time, because I did not.
That's life.
Yeah, exactly.
You live and you
to this
learn.
day. But yeah, I found myself with very good friends and a fiance, you know.
Yes.
And yeah, the past few years have been so good and so terrible at the same time, because they have involved a lot of growth and a lot of and growth is painful too.
Oh,
like
yeah.
that's something that needs to be talked about more, is that it's so worth it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone who has grown as a person should be so proud of themselves, because it is hard and it is painful. But I think that's a sign of true growth, is the fact that it is painful. And yeah, so I've made it to today, which I'm
We're all happy for.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Yeah. And tell me a little bit about like what you're doing now. You're engaged, obviously.
Yes, I'm engaged.
But yeah, what is kind of your day-to-day life now?
Yeah, so I work as a nanny. Best job ever. Like I love it so much. And yeah, I've worked as a nanny for almost 4 years now.
Wow.
Like it'll be
That's
4 in
crazy.
January. And yeah, so the kids that I take care of, when I met them, they were 2 and 1, and now they're about to turn 5 and 6, which is just
That's so
devastating to
crazy.
me, you know.
They grow
but
up so fast.
yeah, and it's just seriously, it's been such a blessing though to play a part in like their growth and development, and just oh my gosh, I love them so much. Like it's crazy. But yeah, I'm very privileged because I have a job that I enjoy. And
That's rare.
yeah, and a lot of people are like, I've been asked, so when are you gonna get a real job? And I was like,
That is a real job.
I'm on salary, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're loving it, and I think you're like the perfect person for the job, because you obviously care about the kids, and the family loves you and everything. So
Yeah. And
it's
so,
good.
So yeah, you can either find me with small children or trying to plan my wedding.
quite the
Or
project.
yeah, I spend a lot of time serving at my church, and that's been a really fulfilling thing for me as well. And so
Nice.
yeah, busy life, but
Yes.
a good one.
Nice. Okay, I guess I'll go. So let's see. So I grew up also in a large family, not as large as hers, but I have 5 older siblings. I'm the baby by a lot. My next oldest sibling is 8 years older than me, and the oldest sibling is 42. So I kind of grew up as an only child from the time I was about 8 or 9, and I was homeschooled growing up, just like Cambry, and that was an interesting experience. I loved being homeschooled in and of itself, but I too have a mother who has some issues, some mental health issues, and we grew up in church, and we also I will unpack this more later, but we also technically grew up in the ATI cult, which was started by Bill Gothard back in the 80s. And we were a part of it and attending meetings and things like that when I was real little. And as I got older, we kind of phased out of it a little bit. But a lot of the principles still held true in how I was raised. So if you don't know about that, I recommend doing some research into it. It's quite the read, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more at some point. But yeah, so that's kind of how I grew up. I also was a dancer, professionally trained ballet, tap, jazz, modern hip hop, all of the styles of dance pretty much, from the time I was about 8 all the way up until 18. And kind of unique, my mother believed that she had heard from God, and that was my career path that God wanted for me is to use dance as a form of ministry, which is great and beautiful and wonderful. And I personally know some people who have done that and they love it. And there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself.
If you choose it for yourself.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes, and so that was kind of God's vision for me, as told to me by my mother. So there was not really a whole lot of other options as far as what I was going to do with my life. That was pretty much the plan, is just dance as long as I can and get married and have babies. So there was not
The
a whole
life
lot
of a woman.
Yes, exactly. And so yeah, that, growing up in a kind of an unhealthy household, as well as basically a cult, is kind of interesting and difficult and has its challenges on one's mental state by itself. But then you add the dance element, and that's a whole other world. There's a lot of unhealthy people in it, unhealthy lifestyles. And so, in just a lot of perfectionism and things, and because it wasn't something that I truly loved and wanted in my heart for the most part, it definitely took a toll on me mentally and emotionally. And so, those two things combined, I definitely struggled myself with my share of some mental health issues and depression and self-harm and things like that. Growing up through high school, that was quite a time. And then I met my husband in high school. I was homeschooled all the way up, but it was just part of a homeschool program we were in. That's where I met him. And we started dating when I was going into my senior year of high school. And that was fine until it interfered with dance. And then my mother said no more. But we were already too deep in the relationship at that point, and I already knew I loved him and I wanted to marry him. And so basically an ultimatum was kind of put in place, and I had to choose whether I was going to do a career that I didn't really want or feel like was the right path for me, or if I was going to get married to my husband. Kind of unfortunate I had to be put in that position. But I basically chose to get married. And, there was definitely a fair share of turmoil within my family because of that. And just growing up in that environment, again, just a lot of struggles in relationships with family and in relationship with myself. So, I got married, and at the great age of 18, 2 days after my 18th birthday. And I started working a 9-to-5 job. Definitely really struggled. Getting married young is challenging in and of itself. And then you add all of the baggage of childhood and past
and abuse.
With that.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was definitely a struggle for a couple years there, and so that's kind of my past. And day-to-day life, I have grown significantly. I have a wonderful husband who was the exact thing I needed coming out of that, and he's done everything possible to help me to heal and grow. And I have my own business now. I'm a photographer, and just loving my life. I don't have any kids yet, but I'm just working hard, building my business, building my life with my husband, and just things are wonderful. And obviously that doesn't mean that anyone is perfect. We all have our fair share of challenges, and I'm still working through a lot of those things. Healing doesn't happen overnight. So, but that's kind of a little bit about me. So I think we're very excited for the direction that this podcast is going to go.
Yeah, and it's interesting because obviously we've talked about so much of this before, but there are obviously big differences between our lives,
right?
But there's also so many similarities, which I think was kind of our reason for starting this in the first place, is that we both have such similar viewpoints and experiences. And so because of that, we're eager to share about, what it's like not to just have a mental illness, because that's very popular right now.
Yes.
But to work through it and to work towards something and to work towards growth and not being the same person that you were as a child. And
absolutely.
yeah,
And not using that as an excuse to continue
Yes.
to be a victim in your life. I'm a huge believer that healing takes both tough love and hard truths, and then also compassion. And so I think definitely a lot of what we talk about is going to be from that lens of telling you guys things that may be a little painful to hear in the moment, but it's things that need to be said and things that have helped us. And then also some compassion of, you know, you didn't deserve the things that happened to you. You are loved, you are valued, and you know, you can heal, you can grow, and you can be empowered to not be stuck in your past and to live a beautiful life. And yeah, I think we've been joking about making a podcast for probably about a year or two, just as a joke, because like every time we hang out, we hang out for like 3 hours and to just talk the whole time and have great conversations. So I'm so glad we're finally doing this, and I hope that you guys kind of can come along with us and enjoy some of the insights you might find, and just enjoy laughing with us at our awkwardness and our realness. And but first and foremost, we don't want to come from a place of acting like we know everything or we're perfect or our lives are perfect. We're coming along on this journey with you, and a lot of the things that we're going to talk about moving forward are things that we're still learning and working through ourselves. So we're on this journey with you all, and we're just super excited to see how we all grow together. So yeah, do you have any more you want to say?
I think it's really exciting to actually be able to do this, because one of the things that has helped me the most in my journey through mental health and just life in general is the idea that, you know, if I can share what I've learned, or even what I'm learning, you know, as I go with someone, then that is a way to redeem it.
Absolutely.
To not just be stuck in the sorrow of a bad childhood, but to be like, well, yes, this is what I've struggled with, but it's not who I am. And there's still so much beauty to be found in life, and to share it with other people, I think, is just such a gift. And I'm so grateful that we've both gotten to the point where we can talk about the things that we've gone through, because it's going to help us. And I believe that it's going to be a really important thing that other people need to hear as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think obviously that's the point of life, is to not just take and heal and learn and grow for our own sake, but also just to pass that along and share that with other people, and, you know, hopefully help them in some way. I think that's our purpose. So that's what we're hoping to do, is just, you know, if you can take anything from what we say, then that makes us very happy. And we love all of you guys, and whoever's listening out there, we're thankful for you. So but yeah, we are super excited. I think our plan is to try to post 2 episodes a month, and then if any of you are following along with my blog, I'm kind of using that as a springboard into the topics that we're going to talk about here. So I'm kind of writing them down, getting my thoughts down on paper, and then just kind of expanding some of those topics here on the podcast. So but yeah, if you can like and subscribe, we would greatly appreciate it, and we are super excited to see you guys next time.